Bahar emerges from the house with glasses of iced cherry nectar, quincy juice, cantaloupe juice. She's wearing a cotton dress, large sunglasses, Jackie O glasses, that's what they called them in Tehran, and sandals, straw sandals. In the afternoon, I sleep on the floor of the hut under the sheer cotton blanket of the kind woven by local women in old-fashioned looms. My hair is matted, my skin covered with sand and salt from the sea. I close my eyes and I can still feel myself being rocked by the waves. Then I wake up. The air is sticky and humid. The sun is still out, but rain is falling in perfect, shimmering drops. It's golden rain, each drop the color of rice fields along the shoreline. I come out of the hut and onto the sand. I feel my heart expand with joy, and I think it has something to do with the sea, this beach, this rain I can hear. And I realize suddenly, to my astonishment, that I can hear so well, as clearly as I once did, as I haven't for such a long time. Even today, I hear that rain in my dreams.
And this last page is toward the end of the book. The reconciliation isn't very successful, and Omid continues the affair with the woman. And at some point, Bahar finds out. She's told by a cousin that Omid has actually had a child with this other with his mistress.
Omid has had a child with Niyaz. It's no longer just an extramarital affair. They've begun a new family together. They have a girl they named Samar. It means fruit of one's labor, the kind of reward that comes to those who work hard and wait. She has her mother's looks, this Samar, and her father's name, and the luxury of being born in a place where her gender is not a curse. She has the same surname as I, but none of the disadvantages. She doesn't have red hair or freckles, I imagine, won't look small or underdeveloped, won't grow up feeling like she's a shadow. She won't be deaf, won't be stupid, won't disappoint her parents. She's an American, this girl, who was conceived, I feel, to correct the mistake that is me. I go to Bahar. Look at me. Look at me, I say out loud. I've come to tell you what I've never dared say in the past, that I love you in spite of my flaws, and I know, Mom, you love me too, that I'm sorry. I'm sorry I failed you. Sorry I didn't bring Omid back. I'm sorry it went all so wrong, but I want to tell you that I tried, that I'll keep trying always, always until you and I can both be proud again. I'm going to get better, I say, as if this would correct what has already happened, erase from the world that other child who has made me disposable. I promise you I'm going to get better. She looks right through me.
Thank you. That's beautiful.
Thank you, Bahar, for that. Just beautiful reading. How very touching, and for your comments. We'll now, if you don't mind, to start with a little bit of discussion among ourselves. Bahar, I was intrigued, especially as I'm listening to these passages you read. What made you choose these specific passages? Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, there's clearly some very interesting themes interwoven in the book. Some things that really stood out for me, the whole concept of class and status, which is exemplified through the scene with the courtship process, the way the father speaks to his daughter and tells her that the marriage is doomed because her suitor is of a higher class. Also, the subservience, like women are expected to be subservient to their husbands, and the loss of their dreams, their loss of their identity. But one thing that really touches me on a personal note, which is a big theme in the I was going to say the film, in the book, is this whole thing about putting up a false facade that everything is perfect and everything is fine. Her marriage with Omid is great. Everyone has to think it's great. Her daughter is fine. I mean, God forbid anyone knows that her daughter is becoming deaf. The ramifications of putting up that false front really strikes a chord with me on a personal note.
May I delve deeper and ask what personal motivation there is there?
So as Gina said, they go from doctor to doctor, but the mother is in complete denial, and this little girl ends up being it becomes a shadow. And instead of the community embracing her and helping this poor girl as she's losing her hearing, has lost her father and has no support, and she feels like she's stupid, she's dumb, Why that hits me on a personal note is my son, who is the love of my life, he is born with limb difference. So my son was born, and he has a prosthetic leg, and he's missing fingers on his left hand, and he is the love of my life. He's the most extraordinary boy. I take so much pride in my son, and I would never dream of hiding my son or hiding his leg or hiding his hand. And I would never want him to ever feel anything less than extraordinary or feel shame. And I think, my gosh, if I had given birth to my son in my parents' generation in Iran, what would my reality be? What would his reality be? And Gina was talking the beauty of being in this country and accepting difference. I mean, you make lemons out of lemonade, and that's what we do in this country. Differences are accepted and is a beautiful thing. And so when I was reading that, when I read about it, and that's what makes me so emotional, hearing this little girl's perspective, feeling she's nothing, it tears me up inside. So that's why, on a personal note, it was just, resonated with me.
Thank you for sharing that. Now, Gina, can I maybe draw you out on the question of the theme of loss and the balance that I felt there is in the novel? It's a balancing act between hope and loss and hope. Do you see this as being mostly a story about loss, or is there hope there?
Yeah, I have to tell you something. It's very interesting. I've been doing cultural and personality studies of readers. The book hasn't come out in Europe and other parts of the world yet, but where it's being translated, I see a difference from country to country and culture to culture, what people see in the book. And also the ending, people interpret the ending differently, and it's always the ones who see that glass half full will see it one way, and the ones who see the glass just normally half empty will see it another way. But to me, there is a lot of hope in the book and in the story. It's just that it's not American type hope. Here we have great ambitions and everything's possible, and the idea of taking small steps, that things get better but in increments, and that it takes forever, and that it's not always going to be exactly what you think it was going to be. As long as it's a little better, it's good enough. And so the characters, their lives improve by generation. Bahar's life, as difficult as it is once she marries Omid, is certainly better than that of her older sister, this woman called the Pigeon Sister, who's actually married the doctor, but the doctor locks her up in the house and beats her and so on. And so she's done better than her mother did and that her sister did, even though she marries this man who doesn't love her, who doesn't show her any kind of affection, and so on. And that Yas herself feels like in the end, she has taken a step beyond what her mother's life was, because she understands what it takes to deal with loss successfully, which is something that the mother doesn't understand. And so in that sense, she says at some point toward the end of the book that I know what is right and what's going to bring us together, and that I'm going to stay here and wait for my mother to finally see that and see me, finally accept me for for what I am. So to me, it's it is life-affirming. And a lot of Europeans who've read that will have the same reaction. A lot of American readers are kind of shocked, like, really? Was it this bad? Could it have been this bad? Are you like, you need to be on antidepressants when you write a book like this? You know, so I think it depends on the reader.
Right, yeah.
You know, in Iran, look, most parts of the world, things don't suddenly become fabulous. And certainly every time you take a huge step like a revolution, you actually do worse, right? You know, reform, it's slow, and, you know, you just take smaller steps.
Well, I also am really curious about, and this is obviously my favorite part of all of your writing, it's not just in Caspian Rain. We see these amazing female characters who stand outside the norms and will do things that nobody will accept normally in society. I mentioned the tango dancer, and I mentioned also the Kurdish servant. Tell me, what do these women stand for, and how do you see
Well,
them?
the servant stands for a servant, and anybody who was in Iran knew a maid like that. You know, they'd like dress up and go out and meet their little boyfriends in the afternoon when everybody was sleeping and stuff like that. So she's actually somebody whose story I heard. But most of these characters are real people, to be honest with you. But it's not, nobody in the audience is anyway. You know, very often what happens, not just with this book, different books, somebody will come up to me at an Iranian party, and the first thing they say is, oh, I know your grandmother. Well, that's very good. And then the second thing they say is, oh, I know who such and such a character is. And sometimes it's them, but they don't know, and they'll say, oh, it's Polani. But these other women, a lot of them, I think, are the alter ego of perhaps what a lot of us wished we could be, which is someone daring enough to rebel and to be able to live with the consequences. I think in all traditional societies, there's enormous social cost, enormous human cost to defiance. Here, you don't like something, you know, people here, Americans, they don't like their families, they're gone, and, you know, no problem. And even if they like their families, most of the time they're gone. But over there, whatever, you have to live by the rules, or you're kind of cast out, you're an outcast, like in tribal times, where if you didn't do as the tribe expected you to do, you'd literally be driven away. And so these other characters are women who do dare to defy, but then they're in the story because I want to show what cost they pay, the price that these people pay for that defiance. And in many ways, actually, their taking that step over there didn't make anybody else's life better. This is another American idea that we have here, which is, you know, you need role models. And so you need one person to step up and step out and take charge of things, and then others will follow. My experience over there was that anybody who acted like what you would think is a role model, as in if she didn't like to be given away in marriage at a certain age to somebody she didn't want to be married to, and so refused or left or whatever, that they became an example of what not to do. And look, you're going to become like her if you defy. Of course, the sad part is that now we're repeating that same experience, not just Iranians, all over the world. You know, in Europe, people are promising their daughters in marriage to sort of these arranged marriages. These kids who've been born and raised in Europe, in England and Sweden and other parts of the continent, and the price for defiance there sometimes is death. So things for women from that part of the world have not gotten a whole lot better, I would say.